when it comes to fasting, it's very important to understand what your goal is first behind doing a fast. Because there's a lot of different reasons why you would do a fast. And fasting is absolutely phenomenal when it comes to all kinds of various health benefits. But there is a time and place, and it's very important to be clear on what your intention is, because fasting isn't necessarily easy, especially if it's a thing you don't really have much experience with. For some, it may be just as good as a magic bullet, and others, it may not really be that effective at all. Fasting is one of those things that the deeper you go, the better the results get. But then at the same time, if you're fasting frequently as opposed to deeply, it could have very diminished returns over time. So it really depends on what your experiences are. So for example, if you are a person where you fast off and on very frequently, you may not really get much of a return from it because your body is already very adapted to it. So if you are going to leverage fasting as a person who is very adapted to it and has a lot of experience with it, frequent fasting may not get you very far, but deep fasting will definitely get you further. So it's important to understand that distinction. Now, fasting in large part is a healing mechanism, right? The deeper you get into a fast, the more healing your body can do, right? Because your body goes through, for example, autophagy, and your body will clear out and break down old, damaged, and dead cells and things like that. So you can see benefits to not only all of your vital organs, but also your blood flow, your skin, hair, nails, and all of that kind of stuff when it comes to a fast. It's very restorative and regenerative. The caveat, though, is the fact that these are not results that you experience right out the gate going into a fast. You got to get through the hard part first. Okay. So if you're fasting for health reasons, it's very clear on what you expect from your fast. You don't want to do it because you generally think it's a good idea and it's a healthy thing to do. You want to be a little bit more clear on what your goal is, right? So you want to be a little bit more specific. Now, I've helped people leverage fasting to achieve all kinds of goals, whether it be reversing insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, or reversing fatty liver disease, healing liver damage, or a kidney disease, right? Chronic kidney disease, helping with that. Combating gut health issues, whether it be small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or reversing issues with candida, or some type of infection, like H. pylori, for example. As well as things like you can benefit as, if you have, let's say, IBS, Crohn's, colitis, diverticulitis, right? Lupus, things like this. Hashimoto's disease, or just hypothyroid or hyperthyroid disorders, right? Hyperthyroid is a bit different, right? But it also works for that as far as rebalancing your hormones. Fibromyalgia. I mean, the list goes on. And so, fasting really benefits you in all these different things. But it's not just the fasting in and of itself that really benefits you and gives you most of the benefits. It's what you do during your fast that's important. It's not just simply just not eating. It's a bit more than that. Then there is fasting, for example, weight loss, or creating a body transformation. Now, if you have a lot of stored fat, to be honest, you really don't need to eat much. If you have a lot of body fat, fasting is a thing you should either be doing now or doing at some point in time down the line. However, you have to take this on a bit of a case-by-case basis, right? Because there is some adaptations that have to happen first with fasting. Some people, they can slide into it fairly easy and it's fine, and then some other people, it's one of the most difficult things they'll ever do in their entire life, right? So some cases are different than others. So, mistake number one is not being clear on your goal and your intention behind fasting. That's mistake number one. Because if the fast becomes challenging, and it becomes challenging enough, if you are not properly motivated, if you are not clear on your intentions, on your goal, chances are you will quit. Okay. It'll break you. And the deeper you get into your fast, the more likely you will quit as a result. So setting your intention. If you're going to do 24 hours, do 24 hours. If you're going to do 3 days, do 3 days. If you're going to do 7 days, do 7 days. But the deeper you get into the fast, the longer you do it, the more it will challenge you. And that's why it's so important to be clear on your intentions and your plan moving forward. Number two, once you're clear on your intentions and your goals behind your fast, are you in the position to do it? Right? So, let's say you are a person where you're coming from having a very poor diet. You have a fair bit of mineral deficiencies, right? Let's say you've adopted a diet for a prolonged period of time where you're lacking potassium, magnesium, manganese, folate, all different types of micronutrients, right? You get a minimal amount of fiber in your diet. You've been engaged in a lot of food poisoning. If you're low on vitamin D, magnesium, iron, these types of things, what you want to do before engaging in any type of aggressive form of fasting, you want to make sure that you're well fed first. It's probably not a good idea to go from a poor diet, mineral deficiencies, and going straight into a fast. Okay? Especially if you're a person struggling with all kinds of food cravings, which cause you to go out through the drive-thru and eat at Chick-fil-A or whatever the case is. Okay? Doing that may cause you to show up to the next stream wearing a neck brace from the whiplash of having a sudden change of going from eating high-fat, high-calorie, greasy, intensely flavored food to then just not eating at all. It's a jarring change of pace to go from eating all that to just not eating at all. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to kind of take a little bit more of a conservative approach and ease your way. And you want to start with a healthier diet first. You want to start working on filling the nutrient gaps first. Because if you're coming from chronic food poisoning, you don't want to skip fixing your diet and going straight into fasting, because this can contribute to a harmful relationship with food. And chances are, if you've been engaging in chronic food poisoning with poor food choices, you already have an abusive relationship with food. So then viewing food in this very negative light to the point where fasting seems all that more appealing rather than just eating better, well, and that would also be another indicator of having a poor relationship with food. And when I say this, I'm thinking about what happens when you stop fasting. Okay, let's say you're a person who you're anywhere from 30 to 40% body fat. You've been chronically engaged in food poisoning on a very consistent basis, right? Coffee, extra caffeine, sugar and cream, croissants, scrambled eggs, loads of cheese, cooked in butter, sausage, bacon, all these types of things. Extraordinary amounts of saturated fat and cholesterol, tons of nutrient holes, just all types of, basically your body is acidic as hell, and you keep eating like that until you end up with acid reflux, all types of GERD symptoms, things like this, right? This kind of abuse. That has to be addressed. You have to start by having a healthier relationship with food first, right? Because that's going to be long term. Because let's say if you go from eating like that, you go into a fast and you go, you know what, I'm sick of having all of this weight on me. I'm sick of feeling like garbage and eating like crap. I'm going to fast. And you fast for, let's say, 3 days or 7 days. And within that week, let's say you fast for 7 days. And within that week, you fast for the 7 days and you drop like 10 pounds, 12 pounds in a week of fasting, right? What happens when you start eating? What do you do? Because you've never fixed your diet. So now what do you go back to? Do you adopt a new diet a new diet strategy, a new way of eating coming right out of the fast, right? And then what happens when you come out of the fast, you lose all the weight, you start eating again, your body gets rehydrated, and then the weight starts going back up in the scale. So you come out of the fast, you gain back 3, 4, 5 pounds maybe, right? So you saw the weight come down 10, 12 pounds on the scale. After the 7-day fast, you start eating again, and then you end up gaining back 7 pounds, 5 pounds. You go, whoa, what's going on? And then you panic and you fast again to get that weight off. This is the trap that people fall into. They see the numbers go up on the scale and they start eating again. They freak out and they go back into a fast again because they desperately want to lose the weight. So then if you already had mineral deficiencies, you then fast your way deeper into mineral deficiencies as a result, because you're terrified of eating because you don't want to gain back the weight you just lost during the fast. It's very important to understand that if you do a 3 or 7 day fast and you see 10, 12 pounds or so drop on the scale, it's very important to understand that a lot of that weight is water weight. Fat metabolism doesn't happen that quickly. Okay, 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories. So if you fast for 7 days, just understand, more than likely, you're not burning 3,500 calories a day, right? So if you're losing a pound a day, it's not from fat, it's mostly water. Water is the first thing to come down, because as your stored glycogen, your stored glucose in your body, as that comes down, then you will hold less water in your body, right? So for every 1 molecule of glycogen stored inside your cells, there will be 3 molecules of water. It's very important to understand that. So your glucose or glycogen stored inside your cells, glycogen is essentially a cluster of glucose molecules stored inside your cells as reserve energy, that your body then uses to engage in your basic metabolic processes. So as that stored glycogen comes down, so will the water, and that's what a lot of the weight loss is. Weight loss is not extremely, rapid, particularly when it comes to body fat. Body fat is a thing, it comes off gradually but slowly. So it's a process we have to be patient with. And if you have to lose 100 pounds, you're not going to fast your way out of, obesity and dropping the 100 pounds to a fast. Now you could, but it's not going to happen particularly quickly. And there could be a lot of backlash that you face as a result, because you still have to eat at some point. And what you choose to eat when you're not fasting will make or break you. Okay. So making sure that before you fast, that you have a healthy relationship or a better relationship with food first. All right, that's what you want to work on first. It may not be sexy or rapid or something that happens really quickly. It takes time, because a lot of it is a mindset thing, right? But, you would have to be comfortable with eating carbs. You would have to be comfortable with meal prep. You would have to be comfortable with foods that don't taste as extreme. They're not super salty and spicy and sour and greasy and sugary. Healthier food choices generally taste a bit more mild than hyper ultra processed foods. So getting used to that and readjusting your palate is very important. Fasting will help with this, but just understand fasting is very challenging, right? And so if you don't go into it with the right mindset, you can go in this up and down yo-yoing volatile state, right? You're eating, then you freak out, then you're fasting, then you're starving, food cravings, it gets the better of you, you start eating again, then you're back up here, then you're back into fasting again. And you're just on this roller coaster, up and down, weight up and down, up and down, and up and down, right? Emotions all over the place. Toxic relationship with food, etc. Right? So basically getting prepared first. So healthy relationship with food, and be clear on your intentions and your goals behind your fast. Right? So two biggest mistakes: not fixing your relationship with food first, and not being clear on your goals and your intentions. A lot of this is mindset stuff. Now, are you fasting because you have an acute health situation that you need to deal with, a bacterial infection? You're in a tremendous amount of pain. You got some really bad looking blood test results. You got some real serious liver or kidney issues. Well, then maybe you want to start fasting sooner than later in order to address this issue, right? So you may want to engage in a purely medicinal fast. Now, if that is the case, just understand that just drinking water all day isn't going to quite cut it. It's because you need to leverage your fast in a medicinal way and help your body reverse inflammation and oxidative stress and whatnot. And you can do that with exogenous forms of nutrients, right? Meaning things coming from outside your body, right? So you have antioxidants, for example, right? We know we get a variety of different antioxidants from herbal teas, right? So herbal teas give us exogenous minerals and antioxidants. And then our body produces endogenous antioxidants, right? So for example, glutathione, which is an antioxidant that your body produces on its own. But a lot of people who are very chronically inflamed and dealing with a lot of health issues, you may have a severe lack of glutathione, right? So then it would be much more important for you at that point to then rely on external forms of antioxidants, minerals, things of this nature, right? So you'd want to have a plan. So y'all know how I do with my big mug, right? My big mug of tea. So right now I got nettle tea in here. But let's say, for example, you're doing a fast. You may want to wake up first thing in the morning and drink, let's say, 8 to 10 ounces of water with squeezed lime, key lime, for example, let's say, with a pinch of sea salt, and drink that down. You may want to do that first thing in the morning. And then after that, you may want to have something like, you may want to drink matcha tea. Right, so let's say you do a half teaspoon of matcha powder and 8 to 10 ounces of water, and then you drink that, right? It's a little caffeinated. It's got some EGCG in it, which is good for your metabolic health and creating a higher level of thermogenesis in your body, loaded with all kinds of antioxidants, right? That kind of thing. After that, maybe, you'd want to drink, let's say, 12 to 24 ounces of water with liquid chlorophyll in it, right? So for every 8 ounces of water, you add 1 tablespoon of liquid chlorophyll to it, for example. Let's say you did that. And you drink that down, right? So that's your first 24 ounces of water or so, like that. You can sip that through over a portion of time. And after that, let's say you drink another form of tea. Maybe you do dandelion root tea. This is very good, especially if you have any type of kidney issues or liver issues, right? So you drink dandelion tea, roasted dandelion tea or something like that. Or you drink milk thistle. These things are very good to help detoxify your body, right? Milk thistle is amazing for that. Dandelion root as well. Now after that, it may be a good idea to drink something that perhaps is more beneficial for your blood flow. Okay. And by the way, if you want to accelerate healing as well as fat metabolism, it would be a good idea to drink something like, let's say, 9 grams of citrulline malate. So essentially, if you get citrulline malate, it should be at a 2-to-1 ratio, something like that. So basically, if you get a scoop, you do 3 scoops of 3 grams or something like that. So you do, let's say, 10, 12 ounces of water, 9 grams of citrulline malate, 3 grams of beta alanine. And what that does is that helps your body create higher levels of nitric oxide, which dilates your vascular system. So this could be very good for blood oxygenation, oxygen saturation in your blood and your lungs and every cell of your body. right? This could be very good for your nervous system, your immune system, because you have higher levels of nutrients going to all of your cells, your more hydration, more oxygen to all of your cells. So this can bring up your energy level. And then what you do is when you drink that, you can head out for a walk. So let's say you walk for anywhere from 30, 45 minutes to an hour. Right? So you walk 3 miles, 5 miles, or however much you can walk, right? It depends on what you're physically capable of doing. But that's a good combination, right? So liver issues, kidney issues, as well as basic weight loss. You're trying to lose weight, right? Or insulin resistance, diabetes, that vasodilation, improving blood flow. That is a tremendously big deal. Okay. And you don't have to do anything that requires a lot of energy. You don't necessarily have to do intense cardio or something like that. Right? Go out for a walk, get some sun. Right? And that's where you can get some vitamin D synthesis going. So you go out for your walk, and let's say you come back home, or whatever you're doing, wherever you're going to, or from or to, depends on your daily life. I'm just giving you an example. So after that, you can perhaps do another form of tea, let's say ginger turmeric tea. So you put, let's say you get ginger powder, you do 1 gram of ginger powder and 1 gram of turmeric powder. You put that in a mug with 8 to 10 ounces of hot water for tea, and you drink that. That is a tremendous source of antioxidants like curcumin and gingerol, which is good for hormonal balance, gut health, and reducing pain in the body. So if you're experiencing inflammation in the form of swelling, pain, neuropathy, things like that, that ginger turmeric tea is very beneficial for that. Distressed gut, bacterial infection in your gut, that can also be very beneficial, right? Ginger, antiviral, antimicrobial, antifungal. So is turmeric. Okay. So combining these two things is a very good idea to implement something like that during a fast. And then finally, before bed at night, let's say, oh, and by the way, you can also put a couple pinches of cayenne pepper in that ginger turmeric tea as well. And cayenne pepper has capsaicin, which is highly thermogenic. It is also antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, right? So it's really good for your immune system and your gut health, as well as fat metabolism, right? Because cayenne pepper, ginger, and turmeric, all of these things boost fat metabolism and oxygen saturation. And oxygen saturation is absolutely crucial for dropping body fat, improving your overall body composition, right? And even building muscle as well. And then before bed, drinking, let's say 8 ounces of water with either magnesium glycinate or magnesium malate. I'm more prone to magnesium glycinate because that glycine is a sleep aid. Magnesium is also a sleep aid. So when you chelate magnesium and glycine together, it's a nice sleep aid. And then in addition to that, if you wanted to supplement with zinc, that would also be a very beneficial thing to do, right? And zinc is one of the minerals that is the backbone for DNA formation and protection. So if you wanted to reduce oxidative stress and you wanted to protect your DNA to reduce your risk of infections or cancer growth or anything like that, or any kind of polyp formation, tumors, or whatever the case is, zinc and magnesium together, along with that glycine, is a beautiful combination for the two, right? So you can do anywhere from 15 to, let's say, 30 milligrams of zinc per se, right? So really loading up on that before bedtime. There is a supplement that is common on the market that is a sleep aid called ZMA, zinc magnesium aspartate. Essentially, what it is zinc and magnesium together, right? Chelated with aspartic acid. So taking the magnesium and the zinc together in their own chelated forms, like zinc picolinate and magnesium glycinate, and taking those before bed, pretty much yields the same result, if not better. Okay, now, of course, that's largely dose dependent. So as far as magnesium, typically your dosage should be at least 210 milligrams. If you're on a fast, it can be a bit higher, like 420 milligrams. And then the zinc, it can be anywhere from 15 to 30 milligrams. For women, you're good enough with 15 to 30. For men, it can even be upwards of 60 milligrams, because men typically need higher levels of zinc. Right, and so the supplementation basically is to have an abundance of it in your body, because that zinc then gets shuttled into your muscle tissue, your bones, and all the lean tissue cells in your body. All right. This isn't a thing that you have to do perpetually. I'm just talking about a fasting protocol, right, to get the most out of your fast. Okay. So this is what I mean, essentially. So number 3, biggest mistake, is going into a fast and thinking, oh, it's just drinking water all day. This could be deeply problematic, because if you're just going to be in a fast and then just be drinking like a gallon of water or more per day, you're going to be doing a lot of urinating and losing a lot of electrolytes as a result. And being that you don't have the blood sugar spikes that you would have from, eating carbohydrates or something like that, your kidneys don't respond and retain electrolytes, right? So you're losing a lot of water, and then you're losing a lot of electrolytes as a result, and this could be deeply problematic for a fast. Okay. And a lack of electrolytes during a fast, it creates a very, very miserable feeling. Some of the symptoms can be chronic fatigue, aches and pains, cramps, spasms, and heart palpitations. Okay. And this will destroy your sleep, especially if you're not eating before bed. All right, so you want to make sure. So magnesium, that is a good electrolyte to have during your day on a fasting day. And salt, right, for the sodium, another important electrolyte. Okay, and these are the things people typically lack, and so you should at least have around 1 or 2 electrolytes of those electrolytes in your body during a fast, in particular in your drinks and things like that you're staying hydrated with. All right. Now, the most common form of fasting that people start off with and engage with is intermittent fasting. And this would be where you have an 8-hour eating window and then a 16-hour fast. Right? It's like the 16-8 fast. Some people, they'll say, okay, I'm going to start eating at 12 and finish eating at 8. Or I'm going to start eating at 8 and then finish eating at 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. So finish eating at 4. Some people it's 2 p.m., whatever the case is. So the difference is if you start eating earlier and then finish eating earlier, that's called early time restricted feeding, or ETRF. Yeah. And then if you start eating midday, like at noon, that's midday time restricted feeding, like MTRF. Both work according to the data that we have, the scientific data that we currently have now. Early time restricted feeding works a bit better than midday time restricted feeding, but ultimately the one that you should choose is the one that works best with your schedule. Now, this will yield most people some moderate fat loss, but there's nothing particularly magical about having a 16-hour fasting window. Essentially, if you're going to have a 16-hour fasting window, half of your fast is going to be in bed at night when you're sleeping throughout the night for your 8-hour sleep window. And then another 8 hours would be where you would be up for 8 hours not eating. What a fasting window does in particular is during a fast, your blood sugar will gradually reduce. Okay? As the deeper you get into the fast, your blood sugar will drop. As your blood sugar drops, your insulin levels come down, right? So as blood sugar drops and as insulin comes down, fat metabolism kicks on and comes up. Okay. One of the reasons why diabetics struggle to get lean or drop body fat is because the insulin level is really high, right? And if you're taking insulin in addition to that, then taking insulin will also raise your insulin level even more, right? And then eating, if you're a type 2 diabetic, for example, your pancreas will release more insulin. And if you're supplementing with insulin, that will raise your insulin even more. So you have perpetually high insulin. And insulin, by the way, let me address this, because it drives me nuts when people call insulin a fat storage hormone. To be clear, insulin is not a fat storage hormone. Okay? Insulin does not store fat. It's not what insulin does. One of the easiest ways to understand why this is the case is because when you eat fat, your body does not use insulin, or it doesn't secrete insulin to any significant degree. Fat is not really insulinogenic because insulin doesn't really act on fat. What insulin is a transportation mechanism for glucose. So when you consume carbohydrates, insulin is more of a glucose storage hormone. So insulin actually shuttles glucose into your cells. What you don't want is you don't want insulin shuttling fat into your cells. Okay, because if that's the case, the lipids you have in your blood being stored inside your lean tissue cells, this will make you diabetic. Okay, because you get an excessive storage of fat shuttled into your lean tissue cells, and that you do not want. Okay, you don't want a buildup of ectopic fat being stored inside your cells. This is an endocrine disruptor, and it will make you insulin resistant. Okay. So insulin primarily acts as two things. It's a growth hormone, number one, and then number two, it's a glucose storage hormone. All right, so insulin sensitivity means that your body utilizes insulin much more efficiently to shuttle glucose into your cells. So being that your body is much more effective at shuttling glucose into your cells, that reduces the likelihood of glucose accumulating in excessive amounts in your bloodstream. When you're insulin resistant, well, then this makes it more likely for glucose to build up in your blood sugar, in your bloodstream, which would elevate and perpetually elevate and maintain excessive levels of blood sugar, right? Which is the reason why the insulin resistance and the diabetes is a problem in the first place. So what happens is you're not getting enough glucose to power your cells, and the glucose is sitting in your bloodstream, and so then your body has to respond to this high level of blood sugar by basically storing the glucose or sugar in your fat cells, or making you drink more water by giving you a dehydrated, thirsty feeling, so you can start drinking a ton of water so you can urinate glucose out. Right? So this is typically what happens. So either you're going to be doing a lot of urinating, you're going to have a dry mouth, or you're going to be very lethargic and consistently gain body fat over time, especially in the midsection. Right? Fasting essentially is a way to guarantee the dropping of your blood sugar and your insulin. This ramps up fat metabolism, and this is one of the primary way that people lose weight when engaging in any form of fasting. It doesn't really always work like this, though, necessarily, because even if you do a 16-hour fast in an 8-hour eating window, 16 hours is not enough time to deplete your glucose enough, okay, to make it like a really significant difference. So if you're going to do intermittent fasting, essentially what you're doing is you're leveraging fasting in very small doses. It's essentially what intermittent fasting is. Right? So you're not really fully applying a fasting strategy necessarily, right? It's a small daily dosage of fasting that builds up and accumulates over time, right? Where you have your body at a lower blood sugar level for a longer period of time, and that adds up over the days and weeks and months, etc. Right? And this can yield you better numbers on the scale, lower body fat percentage, etc. Right? But this is a strategy that takes much. Excuse me. This is a strategy that takes much longer. Okay. And it may actually not work at all. It depends on what you're eating. Now, one of the things that really sabotages something like 16-8 is excessive levels of chronic stress. Stress raises blood sugar. Okay? The more stress you take on, the higher your cortisol level gets, and your blood sugar rises as a result of the cortisol, because cortisol, one of the things that cortisol does is cortisol raises your blood sugar by essentially converting more fat and proteins into glucose for immediate energy. Understand that sugar is one of the primary mechanisms for reducing stress. Stress comes from a lack of energy and damage to the infrastructure in your body, right? Or something damaging the infrastructure in your body. So either there's something toxic accumulating in your body and that's causing inflammation and oxidative stress, or your cells are struggling to maintain the adequate amount of metabolic processes because there's a shortage of energy. That shortage of energy and the toxic buildup in your body will cause an acceleration of cortisol buildup. Now, this is primarily driven by either consistent food poisoning, which is usually, having excessive levels of acid production in your body. Right. So earlier, I think was it last week, I did a stream talking about alkaline versus acidic diet. Right. And so basically, one of the biggest problems that we have that destroys our health is having an excessive accumulation of acid buildup in the body, and your body has to work harder to lower the acid levels and have more alkaline formation. Right. So if your body's doing a poor job with alkalizing your body and this acid is climbing, then your cortisol levels are going to climb, and then your estrogen levels are going to climb. Because estrogen, your body will leverage estrogen against cortisol to bring cortisol down. So cortisol becomes elevated the more stressed out you are, the more your sleep quality gets reduced, cortisol increases, and therefore your blood sugar becomes higher on average, especially in the morning. So some of you who sleep poorly and you're really stressed out and insulin resistant, you may wake up before you even eat anything and your blood sugar is like 180, 210 or whatever the case is, even though you haven't eaten anything. That's the cortisol. Your body eventually responds with estrogen, rising of estrogen, to then bring down cortisol, because estrogen also is in part a stress hormone. But of course, especially as if you're a woman, as estrogen climbs, usually progesterone declines, right? And so if you have this perpetual decrease in progesterone, and your progesterone drops to very unhealthy levels, this can drive you into an early menopause. This can cause you to have issues with PCOS and Hashimoto's and endometriosis and fibromyalgia and all these types of things, right? So that's a thing that's very important to consider, right? And if you have that low progesterone issue, you may not really want to be messing around with the fasting. You may want to focus on adequately nourishing your body with a whole food, carb-rich diet, right, to really drive down the stress. Because as you become more insulin sensitive, cortisol will decrease, sleep quality will improve, serotonin levels will increase, melatonin levels will increase, you'll get more dopamine sensitivity, etc. So fasting is not a magic bullet, and this goes back to why I said you need to be clear on what your intentions and your goal is. Because if you have these hormonal imbalances where your progesterone is ridiculously low and estrogen is really high, and you're insanely stressed out and sleep poorly, fasting may not necessarily be a good idea. You may want to really leverage food in a medicinal fashion first. So basically I'm explaining all these hormonal responses, right? That is very important to understand, because when we get into hormones like insulin, when we get into hormones like ghrelin and leptin, which is your satiation and hunger hormones, it's another thing. So as you get deeper into a fast and your blood sugar level drops, you'll start to feel hungry, you start to feel hangry, right? Hungry and cranky combined, right? You get hangry. You get impulsive food cravings, right? Start getting a little frustrated, maybe a little tired, fatigued, can't really think clearly. That's your blood sugar level declining. That's what that low blood sugar feeling feels like. And so if you're feeling that, just understand that your blood sugar has dropped low enough where the fast has pushed you up to your resistance point, where your body reaches this point where it's either going to manipulate you to trigger you to eat, to seek out foods. And it's typically going to be something that's very calorically dense, something typically that is loaded with sugar or salt or both. Because understand that you have 3 food cravings: sugar, salty, or sweet, salty, crunchy. Those are the top 3. And so you're going to go out and you're going to seek something that is either 1, 2, or all 3 of those things, right? Because your body wants an abundance of glucose and sugar immediately. So you may prioritize processed foods. You get this craving for processed foods as a result, because processed foods, they have a higher glycemic index, they're more calorie dense, and just a more richer source of glucose. So it's very important to understand what that is, because in that feeling, you're going to want to I just want to grab anything that's just sweet, salty, crunchy. So it may be potato chips. You may binge eat cashews or peanuts or whatever, right? Roasted, salted, whatever. You may binge eat chocolate or whatever the case is. And then you say, I don't know what happened. I felt hungry. I was feeling miserable. I just broke and I just ate all of this stuff. I didn't mean it. I don't know. I lost control. That's your gut and your brain communicating with each other to say, hey, let's force this body to go and eat something so we can get this energy. However, when you're aware of that and you don't respond to it, you feel that feeling, you embrace that feeling, right? And you eventually, what happens is that feeling will pass and your body will go, okay, fine. There's no food. We got to do something about this dropping blood sugar and this low energy. So now we're going to tap into fat for energy at a much higher rate, because we got to get this energy back up. So then your body will switch gears, adjust to the fast, and then really just run on just straight up fat for energy. Now this process typically takes anywhere from 24 to 36 hours, 48 hours at the most, right? Somewhere around there. It's in between 24 and 48 hours. 48 hours is probably where you'll run up against the wall and really feel this feeling. The worst of it, though, is typically after 48 hours or 72 hours, right? But it's usually the worst of it is after 48 hours. But there's notches. So 24 hours, then you really start getting that feeling. Then it's 36 hours, then it's 48 hours. This is typically what happens. And that's because your body shifts gears repeatedly the deeper you get into a fast. If you've eaten a couple hours ago, your body still has like this stored glycogen in your liver and whatnot to use for energy, right? Your blood sugar is still up there a little bit, so you still can use that, so it's not as bad. But over time, that stored glycogen, that stored glucose in your liver, that really starts to drop. Blood sugar starts to come down. The insulin comes down. And that's when your body starts to freak out a little bit and starts sending you signals. That's what's happening. After 24 hours, when your glycogen stores are fully depleted, that's when you really have to switch into fat burning mode. And you're really all the way into running on stored fat for energy all the way after like that 24-hour period, right? And then your body has to notch back in even deeper after like 36 or 48 hours. And I'm really emphasizing that too, because you won't just be tested once, you'll be tested repeatedly. Now, after 24 hours or so, you'll start to feel a little bit better. You'll get adjusted, but you'll still feel kind of like anxious. Like you can eat. You're not necessarily hungry, but you can eat. And you'll feel that. It won't be, oh, I'm starving. It'll be, I really want to eat something. I just have the impulse to eat. I don't feel tired and lethargic necessarily. I just really have an impulse to eat. That's typically what happens, right? You may feel restless. Like you got all of this energy that you don't know what to do with. You just, all your cells are just high energy. You're just like, I just want to do something, right? You're like hawked up. I want to eat something. I want to go out and run a mile. I want to clean my house. I want to do stuff. Right? This is what kind of happens. And this is how you know your body's really tapping into stored fat and using that for energy. Just because you feel hungry does not mean you have to eat. So if you're worried about starving and losing muscle and all, that's not going to happen in that short of a period of time. Not even close. The human body can actually go without food for a really, really long time. Like freaking 20, 40 days. Your body can go for months without food. It's insane. You shouldn't go for months without food. But you can. I wouldn't advise it, but you can. I think 40 days is like the upper limit. That's really pushing it, actually. But in any case, you don't have to respond to every hunger craving you get, and you have to go into the fast. If you're going to do a long-term fast, is to be disciplined enough to be aware of that, because you will be provoked, and your body will fight you on your set point. And the more body fat your body metabolizes for energy, the more your body's going to fight you. Because the human body doesn't really want to drop but so much body fat. Your body may do it for like the first 10, 12 pounds, but then you'll reach a point where your body's like, all right, let's slow it down, put the brakes on this a little bit. So your body will stop at like your set point. So let's say your set point is 185 pounds. Okay. Once you hit that 185, then all of a sudden all the weight loss stops. It's just like a grind. It's really difficult. That's your set point. So you're going to have to wait it out, and you're going to have to put a little bit more effort, where you're going to have to challenge your metabolism a bit more to push your body past that 185 set point. And then once you breach that 185, then you can notch down to like 177, 176 or something like that. Or just keep going until your body reaches another set point. Interestingly enough, in the world of finance or stock trading and things like that, this is similar to the concept of support and resistance. Right? So support, so like let's say you have the price of something, and when you buy a stock, typically you want the price to go up. The higher the price gets, the more selling pressure there is, until you reach resistance. And then when you hit resistance, which is that highest price point with the maximum sell pressure, usually there's a rejection, and you go back down, and the price will then decline. And then at some point in time, you may get close to or hit support, which is the lowest amount of sell pressure, right? And then usually at that support level is where buying pressure is highest, and that pushes the price back up. People live their lives in terms of support and resistance. The reason why I'm explaining it this way is because this is a universal principle, okay? Even in success in your personal life, regardless of what it is, you're always operating in between support and resistance, okay? You're the most likely to slack off the more success you get. And then the closer you get to support, the more motivated and focused you get, because you're like, oh, I got to really turn this around. Right? So just think about, what weight are you typically at when you get triggered to start going to the gym, to start working out more consistently, to start getting on top of your diet? What is that weight that you typically do that at? That's called support. And then your set point, which is that weight that you can't really breach, you lose a certain amount of weight and then you stop, that's resistance. Right? So it's very important to understand where your support and resistance are, so you can be aware of the parameters that you're in. Right? So when you get close to resistance, it's important to know where your resistance level is, to know that this is where you have to be the most disciplined. All right. And a fast works the same way. Now, some people, fasting is particularly more challenging. Some people, the whole fast is miserable. I'm talking like after 6 hours, it's hell. 12 hours, it's hell plus. Right? And then, like, you know, you get it, you're 12 hours in, it's a headache, it's fatigue, right? And then 16 hours in, it's worse. 20 hours in, the headache is more intense. Then it's just this miserable, drained feeling. I just want to lay out on the couch. I don't want to do anything. I feel shot. I feel miserable. 24 hours in, it's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm starving to death. I feel like I'm gonna pass out. I feel lightheaded, blah, blah, blah. Right? Now, this feeling feels particularly dangerous. For that person, I would say, for you, you're really going to, if you really want to pursue fasting, you're going to have to dose it. So, which means that you're going to have to gradually extend your fast longer and longer to get into it. You can't just go straight into it and just be like, I'm going to ignore the hunger cues and but. I mean, you could, but it feels absolutely terrible and it's terrifying. That's the thing. I have a healthy appreciation for people's feelings. So I'm not going to tell every person, regardless of what they're feeling, hey, just stick at it. Don't quit. While you're telling me, hey, I have a throbbing headache and I feel like I'm going to pass out and I don't feel safe to drive. Right? I know you feel like that, but just trust the process. I'm probably not going to tell you that. And it's a variety of reasons, because if I tell you that, I'm really testing our relationship and the trust you have for me in a way that is borderline abusive. Right? I generally don't do that with people. Okay. Number two, there is a risk because you can push it to the point where possibly your body doesn't really adapt in the way that it should. And if it's not adapting in the way that it should, that's why you feel that way. And there's only but so much you can fight your body. So if you hit, like, let's say the 18-hour mark and it just feels like absolute hell and it's unbearable, then maybe you want to get comfortable with the 16-hour mark and then retest that 18-hour mark. You'll have to retest the 18-hour mark 3 times. Now, going back to the support and resistance thing, it's very important to take notes of this. Resistance, let's say resistance for you is 18 hours. Once you're 18 hours into the fast, it's absolute hell. That's resistance for you. Right? Eating every day consistently is like support. Yeah. Or the fast that you feel really comfortable with and is easy to do is like maybe 12 hours. So support is like 12 hours. Resistance, 18 hours. You're gonna have to come up to the 18-hour mark, to the 18-hour point, then hit a rejection, come back down. Okay? Retest again. Going back up to 18. Hit 18. Get a rejection. Back down. Then the third time you go back up to the 18. Maybe you'll hit a rejection again at that point. Maybe you won't. Maybe 18 won't feel as bad the third time around. But if it does, you will more than likely be able to go further than the 18 the fourth time. So you have a maximum of 3 rejections. 3. Typically, if you get rejected 3 times, if you get rejected a 4th time, it's soul crushing. Right? It's the most defeating thing to ever experience, right? The 4th time, it's like it's not going to happen, right? I've never had anybody hit rejection like 3 times and they weren't able to clear that point the 4th time. So what that looks like is you test 18 hours or the 18-hour fast. Let's say you test it maybe twice a week. You can do it once a week or you can do it twice a week. So let's say you do the 18 hours, you either test it on Saturday or you test it on Sunday. Okay, that would be like the once a week you do it. So you retest, you hit 18, 18 feels terrible, you get rejected. Next week, same thing, 18 out 18, test it, get rejected. You may have to do 3 weeks retesting that 18-hour mark, right? But then you pretty much always get it the 4th time, if not the 3rd time, right? Typically, people typically get rejected 2 to 3 times. I've never seen anybody get rejected 4 times. When I say get rejected, I mean like it's absolute, it's hell plus squared, okay? So you have to be patient with the process at that point. If you want to really be ambitious, maybe you eat really well on Monday and then you test Tuesday, you get rejected Tuesday, you go and you retest Saturday, you get rejected Saturday. The next week you'll get it. You'll probably get it the next week on that Saturday. If you don't get it the next week on that Saturday, maybe you're being a little too aggressive, right? But patience is key. This is what I mean about having a plan, right? Now, this takes an incredible amount of discipline to really strive for, to surpass your fasting plateau. You have to be really dedicated to making fasting work if you're going to do this. And if you're going to do that, you got to have a really good reason for doing it. So going back to number 1, be very clear on your intentions and your goals. What are your expectations? Right? It's like that question that a parent asks, what are your intentions with dating my daughter? Right? You better be clear on your intentions. Right? We're not doing this for like shits and giggles. We're not doing this for that. So having a plan. Now I talked about the herbal teas and the drinks and the supplements to do during a fast. I talked about being clear in your intentions. I talked about when to do a fast, why you would do it, the time durations. I talked about that. So as far as this mistake that I just touched on, I would say that this mistake is not having a plan and not having a laid out timeline, right? So you have to have a healthy respect for time. Time is usually the determining factor that people run up against. In my experience, the most common reason why people fast is to lose weight or detoxify their body. People say, I want to do a detox. Your body is always detoxing. So just wanting to do a detox is not really a good reason to do a fast because your body's always detoxing. This is why you have a lymphatic system. This is why you have a liver. This is why you have kidneys. This is why you exhale carbon dioxide. This is why you urinate, you move your bowels, right? Smooth moves on the porcelain throne. All of these are forms of detoxification. Your diet, your foods have fiber, and the fiber expands as it moves to your digestive tract, and it binds to harmful substances and chemicals and heavy metals and whatever else. And that is also a detoxifying element. So now if you say, I want to do a detox, it's very clear, well, what are you trying to detox from? What are you trying to detox from? All right. Until you can answer that question, you shouldn't do a fast for a detox. Some people may disagree with me on that. That's just my personal feeling on it. You got to be crystal clear on your intention. If you say, I want to do a fast because I want to lose weight, it's a great reason. However, what is your relationship with food? What does your diet plan look like first? Before you fast for weight loss, you should have a diet plan. And I have to say this, since we're talking about weight loss. You don't eat to lose weight. There's no such thing as a weight loss diet. Okay. You don't eat to lose weight, and there's no such thing as a weight loss diet. It's not a thing. In order for your body to drop body fat, the best way to do it is to get your blood sugar and your stored glycogen low enough and your insulin levels low enough. You drop all those levels, and that will push your body into fat metabolism. The best way to do that, or the fastest way to do that, is fasting. So fasting for weight loss is actually a very good reason to do a fast. If your goal is you want to lean all the way into fasting, you want to lean all the way into your weight loss journey, fasting is a good option. Now, of course, it has to be paired with a diet that can maintain your health as well as your weight loss progress. So you got to have both. It's not one or the other. You got to have both. And then you have to have a solid schedule. Are you doing 3-day rolling fasts on a weekly basis for the next 12 weeks? Are you doing alternate day fasting? Are you doing a 7-day fast? Are you doing what kind of fasting schedule you have? What is your timeline? You're going to do this for 3 months, 6 months, right? 12 weeks, 24 weeks, 90 days, whatever the case is, right? What is your timeline? And what is the range of progress do you expect to make within that time? Okay. And you can calculate this mathematically. So, for example, I'm a big fan of alternate day fasting. You do alternate day fasting. You can drop in a week, if you do 3 days of alternate day fasting, you can drop anywhere from 1.5 to 3 pounds of straight body fat per week. Okay. Now you may say, "Oh, I've did alternate day fasting. I could drop 10 pounds in a week." It's not. I'm talking about fat loss, not water. Nobody wants to. My goal is to drop water weight. Usually, when people want to lose weight, they want to drop body fat. Right? So I'm talking about explicitly body fat. Now, if you want to leverage fasting for weight loss, it is very important to understand that you can fast and lose very minimal weight at all. Right? If you're going to fast, especially, let's say you're going to do alternate day fasting or something like that, you should be active during your fast. So, during your fast, you should be getting on a recumbent bike, a spin bike. You should be walking a few miles during your fast, right? Doing some form of short-term resistance training during your fast. You break out the resistance bands and you hit a solid, hard 20-minute workout or a 10-minute workout with your resistance bands during your fast, and then you walk a few miles, that kind of thing, during your fast. The reason why fasting is so beneficial for weight loss is because it's a phenomenal way to challenge your metabolism. Challenge your metabolism to tap into stored fat for energy sooner than later and at a much higher degree. So if you're active and you exercise, essentially what happens, and in particular during a fast, I'm not really a big fan of doing anaerobic activities during a fast. So I don't really tell most people. I don't tell them to do resistance band training during a fast. I usually don't tell people to do that. It can be very effective and a great way to drop weight really quickly, but it's a very aggressive approach, and I generally don't recommend doing that. I'm actually pretty conservative in my approach because I value. I'm not like a lose weight at warp speed guy. I'm not a weight loss coach. That's not what I am. I don't, hey, drop 90 pounds in 30 days type person. I'm not about that. My whole thing is health first. I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass. I'm not going to make all types of elaborate claims and promises. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be really bluntly honest with you. Here are reasonable expectations. I'm pretty conservative in my approach because I'm not trying to really sell you anything, right? I want you to be clear-eyed. And I want you to have the raw truth of what it is. No gimmicks, no nothing. It's just, this is the math. This is a reasonable expectation, right? This is the sacrifice you're going to have to make. This is how consistent you're going to have to be. This is how slow the process is or how fast the process is. These are the risks. These are the benefits in real clear-eyed terms. All right, so that's what I'm telling you here. Now, the reason why I recommend more steady state, moderately challenging or not really that challenging at all as far as cardio is concerned on your fasting is because if your goal is fat metabolism, this requires a lot of oxygen. So you have two types of exercise primarily. You have anaerobic exercise and aerobic exercise. Anaerobic exercise is largely dependent on burning glucose and glycogen for energy. So your intense resistance training, your sprinting, things like that, you're not really going to be getting a ton of oxygen saturation during activities like this. Lifting heavy weights, I mean, you got to breathe in, brace, and hold your breath, and you run out of breath real quickly, right? Now, fat metabolism requires a lot of oxygen. To burn glucose doesn't really require much oxygen, but to burn fat, that requires a lot of oxygen. One of the biggest reasons why people struggle to drop body fat is because they have poor oxygen saturation of their cells. They have low levels of blood oxygenation, their body's acidic, they got to alkalize their body more consistently, etc. Okay. So having an alkalizing diet, deep breathing exercises, having a really solid sleep schedule, things like this will maximize oxygen efficiency. And then, of course, consistent aerobic exercise. This could be walking, this could be bike riding, this could be a light jog, or whatever the case is. Now, in real clear terms, I'm going to give you real clear terms as far as what your numbers would look like on a heart rate monitor. Okay, so you know how I like to talk about the numbers and the math behind things. During your fast, exercise is going to significantly reduce the amount of time it's gonna take you to go all the way through your fast. So it is true that it would take you 24 hours to burn through all your stored glycogen. However, exercising can cut that length of time down by like 80%. I can burn through all of my stored glycogen in like 30 minutes doing resistance training. Okay, I would damn near put myself straight into a fasted state after a workout. It happens real quick. 24 hours is like the maximum amount of time, but you can significantly cut that time with exercise. So if you're in a fast, and let's say you go for a walk or something, that will drive you deeper into your fast quicker. And what happens is your body will adapt by increasing oxygen efficiency and increasing oxygen saturation, therefore triggering higher levels of fat metabolism. Stored fat is not very thermogenically active, right? For the most part, fat is very non-thermogenic. It's dormant, okay? And that's because stored fat for energy is an auxiliary form of energy. Your body doesn't really use stored fat to any significant degree. It's more of a backup. Your body is like a sugar addict. Your brain, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, all of the cells in your body, your whole nervous system is just like this cracked out, coke addicted sugar addict. Okay? The human body is like a child craving candy, right? Your body burns through a tremendous amount of sugar because sugar is your body's primary energy source. So your body craves sugar. Sugar is very thermogenic. It's very easy to burn through sugar, carbohydrates, this kind of thing. And I'm using the term sugar rather than glucose to really emphasize the point. You want to build larger muscle. You want to build stronger muscle. Sugar. You want to improve your reading comprehension? Sugar. You want to improve your sleep quality? Sugar. You want to balance your hormones? Sugar. Your body uses sugar to a large degree to operate all of these things that I just mentioned. Sugar deprivation is not a thing your body likes at all. Now, the caveat I'm making, I'm talking about sugar, but I'm not saying to go and just get a tablespoon in a jar of sugar and just start scooping sugar in your mouth. It's not what I'm talking about. Because, of course, your body also needs vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, amino acids, etc. It's not just sugar. But sugar is the dominant energy source for energy. Your body is very energetic. Your body loves and craves energy. Okay? And sugar is the primary source of energy that facilitates the utilization of vitamins, minerals, and amino acids, etc. Cellular formation, enzyme development, hormone synthesis, etc. Right? In order for any of that to happen, you need sugar to do that. In the absence of sugar, well, then now fat is next up. So if you go and you walk your 3 to 5 miles or whatever during your fast, this right here will guarantee you weight loss results that are very significant. And it's a very big difference between not walking the miles during your fast and walking the miles during your fast. Not walking the miles during your fast will lead you to a very disappointing outcome because your results can be very marginal as a result. Now, in terms of your heart rate, getting back to that. Now, your heart rate increases as the demand for oxygen increases. So, your body will pump blood through your veins at a higher frequency because your cells need that oxygen faster, and the primary transportation mechanism of that oxygen is your blood. So when you engage in any type of exercise or activity, the oxygen demand increases. And as that oxygen demand increases, your heart rate rises to facilitate the force and the inertia necessary to transport that oxygen to your cells in time. Okay? If your oxygen needs are not met and your blood flow is not efficient enough, this will fatigue the crap out of you. It can even cause you neuropathy, numbness, tingling, cramps, etc. Lightheadedness, all that kind of stuff, right? So that explains that. Now, if you're doing a low level, not really that challenging, but let's say going for a walk. And generally speaking, if you're going for a walk, your heart rate should be in between 90 and like 105 or 90 and 115, somewhere around there. So if you're wearing like a Fitbit or some type of heart rate monitor, it's good to look out for those numbers, right? Try to stay in that range of 90 to 115 on your walks. If you only have 30 minutes, you don't have like a full 45 minutes or an hour to put into this kind of activity, and you really want to leverage your metabolism and cardio to get the results, then you want to strive for a heart rate in between, let's say, 115 and 135. Or 115 and 130. Right? So you typically want to do something along those lines. All right. So an hour, you can stay in between 90 and 115. Half an hour, maybe 115 to 130. Those would be like your ranges. Okay. Once you go above like that 130, you start getting into the 140s and 150s. Now it's anaerobic, right? And you're very limited on oxygen. And then as a result, that's going to make your fast a lot more challenging. And you're going to have to be a lot more metabolically developed in order to engage in that long term. Right? You'll burn yourself out pretty quickly. That may be a bit too aggressive. So just to wrap up, because I'm not really going to go too much longer, there's a lot into this. But essentially, as far as the biggest mistakes are concerned, not being clear on your goals, not having a plan, right? Not being clear on your intentions, and not doing the right things during your fast or after your fast, and not having a healthy relationship with food, and not knowing what's happening in your body during the fast. Right, talking about awareness, support, resistance.